Welcome back to Robin's Racing. So we're going to do a real quick video talk about batteries. So we get asked a lot about what batteries do I need for my car. So we're going to do just a quick overview of batteries, give you some ideas of what some of the options are out there and how some of it works. First thing we'll talk about is the different kinds of batteries. The two main kinds of batteries you'll find in RC, nickel metal. With these, they're really easy to identify. They look like a bunch of C-cell batteries or AA's kind of heat shrink together. Those are going to be your nickel metals. The other option you're going to have is LiPos, or lithium-polymer batteries. Lithium-polymer batteries, you got hard cases like this. It's going to be like a big brick. You're going to have soft cases like this, which are basically heat shrinked again. They're usually long, flat cells. And then you also have what we call shorty packs, which are still hard cases, but they'll have plugs in them versus having a connector on them. Okay, so you got nickel metals and you got LiPos. The other thing you're going to have is different types of connectors, right? So you got this is called an EC3. Looks like this. You've got a Traxxas connector, which is standard for Traxxas. This is what we call them receiver packs, or there's a lot of different names for these, but basically they're the ones that will plug into your receiver. This battery is used for nitro cars to run the electronics on the nitro car. This is an IC5 connector. You find these pretty standard on the Spectrum batteries. And you've also got IC3s, which is same thing, just smaller. The telltale sign with these is they will have a little gray wire in the middle or a pin in the center. These are actually compatible with EC3. IC3 is interchangeable. EC5, IC5, the blue ones and the orange ones, those are interchangeable. IC2s and EC2s are not interchangeable. So just that's kind of a piece for later. And then, of course, for your bullets, this goes off the size of the bullets. So what you're going to have is usually a cable looks something like this. This one was built for charging the battery. Those bullets plug into there, and the other end plugs into your charger. What I recommend, always plug your lead in first before you plug these bullets in. If you happen to have them in there and you have, like, say, bullets on the other end, they touch, you will short out your battery. So be careful when you run these types of leads. But that's a shorty pack. These are real popular amongst racers, drag racing, things like that. Okay, so we talked about nickel metal, we talked about LiPo, we talked about the different types of connectors that we have. Now I want to talk about voltage and amperage. What voltage and what amperage do you need to run in your car? First thing I'm going to tell you is always reference your manual, right? So your manual is going to tell you what you can run: a 7.4 volt battery, an 8.6 volt battery, an 11.1 volt battery, and so forth and so on. So on your batteries themselves, they will usually tell you what they are. In this case, this is an 8.4 volt battery, nickel metal. This particular battery here, this is a 7.2 volt battery. This is a 6 volt battery. This is a LiPo 11.1 volt battery. This is actually a 6-cell battery. There's 6 individual cells in here. So this is 22.2 volts, and so forth and so on. So the way batteries work for LiPo batteries is 2-cell is going to be a 7.4, a 3-cell is an 11.1, a 4-cell is 14.8, 5-cell is about 18 volts, 6-cell is 22 volts, 8-cell is 28.8 volts, and so forth and so on. So what we've got here, when we talk about voltage, voltage is the first thing you need to know, because obviously the battery is going to put whatever voltage it has out to the ESC in the motor. And if that voltage is too high, things are going to get crispy. On the other hand, amperage is the other number you're going to find on a battery. So we talk about voltage. You're going to find that with a big V indicated on it. Let me give you a better example here. So right here, this one's 22.2 volts. Now, when you charge this battery, it's actually going to charge up to like 24.4, 24.6 volts. But this is the lowest voltage the battery gets to. But this is the number you need to reference. So make sure your ESC and motor can handle that voltage before you plug this battery into the car. Otherwise, again, you're going to fry stuff. The other number on your battery you're going to find is the milliamps and the C rating. What these two numbers are, imagine this is like the V is like the octane of your gasoline. The milliamps is the size of your gas tank. The C rating is the size of the fuel line coming from your gas tank to your motor, right? So if you take the milliamps, let me use this one as an example. 5,000 milliamps times 30 C is, anybody?
What does it come out to be?
150. It comes out to 150,000. Drop the 2 zeros, it's 150. So this battery will produce 150 amps, right? Now, most of you are like, what does that matter for, right? The thing is that your motor determines the amperage that it needs to run at, right? Your battery will give it however much it needs, up to 150 amps. Now, if you're running like say a race car, a drag car, something like that, where you need higher amperage, and you may need a battery that's got a higher C rating, a 50C, 100C, 200C. That basically just means this battery can dump out that 11.1 volts a lot faster. So again, milliamps is the size of your fuel tank. Your C rating is the size of your fuel line. A lot of people like that analogy, so I use that to kind of explain how batteries work. Voltage is constant. Make sure your voltage matches what your car can handle. Milliamps is how long your car literally is going to run for. The C rating is how fast the battery is going to discharge. Okay.
And then you could back up just to clarify for some people that are maybe starting out getting new to a car. Maybe they're looking at a Traxxas Slash 2-wheel drive brushed, and maybe they got it for Christmas or something, and they need to get a battery, and they have no clue what kind of battery they need. And so a lot of times in your brush cars, people are going to run a nickel metal battery internally in them. But it's also good to know that you can run up to a 2S LiPo. Yep. And a lot of people get afraid about that, and they're confused. All they know is, you know, Traxxas said something about this, or maybe it came with this battery. They're unaware that they can bump up to only a 2S LiPo if your manual says you can on that model. Not all models will do that.
Yep.
But if you do happen to go from a nickel metal battery and you jump up to a 2S LiPo, we do know that this is not a 3S, so clearly you couldn't run this. But if you could bump up to a 2S LiPo, what you would see happen is you're going to see a power increase, and sometimes you'll see a runtime gain through it. So it's also good to know, you know, what kind of car you have. If you're not sure, always go back to the manual, and you can kind of see what you can upgrade to. Maybe before you hit that brushless upgrade, you might want to put a 2S in it and slowly graduate before you go to bigger power to 3S or for sure.
So, and kind of carrying on from what he's saying too, is that the discharge rate of these, or the C rating of a nickel metal battery, is pretty low. In a lot of cases, it's about 15C, right? In which case LiPo's is much higher, 50C, you know, 60C. So basically they can output that power quicker. So like you said, it's an increase in power on the batteries, but the voltage, as long as it's constant, they'll work.
It'll work.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about matching the connector to the ESC. So basically what you want to do is you want to make sure that whatever your car has, your ESC has on it, ideally you want your batteries to match that, right? So if you've got a Traxxas car, run Traxxas connectors. If you've got a Spectrum car, you're going to find IC3 or IC5. It's important to know what your car has on it so that you can match the batteries.
And with Spectrum, in case that if you're newer to the hobby and you're not sure what that is, that's pretty much you're going to find that in all your ARMA cars, all your low-C cars. Pretty much even in ECX you'll find them in there. So just knowing if that, you know, trying to catch on board and say, well, I don't even know what that means. You're going to find that in pretty much almost every other car but Traxxas, just about.
Right. So really quick though, we do a lot of soldering here for people. So sometimes maybe you got a Traxxas car, but you want to run an IC5 connector because you have those batteries. So people tell me a lot of times, they're like, well, which end do I need? There's a male connector and a female connector on connectors, right? Your batteries will always be female. Here's the reason why. Pretend this is metal. I can't short that battery out because it's female. If there was two male prongs, which is what's on your ESC, you could. So batteries are always female. Your ESC and your charger is always male. All right. So I'm not going to beat that part to death, but batteries are always female.
And another way you can also check, we might even have a IC5 male down here. If we can, we'll pull it out. But when you're looking at a battery end, if we'll get up close right here, you can see that it's open inside like that, and you'll find the same thing on an IC3. They're all the same inside, but on a male end, you'll see like this, you'll see prongs internally, and that is the best way to identify if you have a male or female connector.
Yep, some people get confused because they think that because the male plug goes inside, make sure those aren't touching, inside the female connector, that it is the other way around, but that's not true. Like Rex said, female is the hole, male is a prong. We're not gonna have a biology lesson, but that's how that works. All right, so let's talk about low voltage cutoff. When you switch between a nickel metal to a LiPo on your car, the main thing is you need to turn the low voltage detection system on your car. Different manufacturers call it different things, but basically what it does is that this battery cannot go below 11.1 volts. Otherwise you can cause damage to the battery. The ESCs on our RC cars now are smart enough that they will protect your battery. Nickel metals, they'll drain all the way down to dead and come back up. These are great for kids, by the way, because there's really no harm, no foul. Lipos, on the other hand,
responsibility with them.
that's right, yes. Lipos, you got to be a little more careful with them, so you want to make sure you look at your manual and make sure the low voltage detection is on. Without going down a rabbit hole of that, Traxxas, the little light on the ESC will be green for lipo, red for nickel metal, right? And the manual will tell you how to turn that on and off. Your local hobby shop can also tell you how to turn that on and off.
Yeah, if you get confused by it or something at home, if you get something for Christmas, we have the holidays coming up, and you're not sure how something works, come on down to Robbins Racing. We'll be glad to give you, a tutorial on how to do it, because safety first. I mean, you can't have fun with a new toy if you just ruin the battery.
We might make a video on that later.
And we can throw that up.
So let's talk a little bit about charging your battery. And actually, before we get to charging, I'm gonna jump a little bit ahead. I want to talk about storage and safety of LiPo batteries first, so that I can move this out of the way. But the first thing, storage. So you've got really nice cases like this. We call these bat safe cases. These are probably the best thing you can get for your battery. If inside of there you've got a large storage area for your batteries. Also, if you notice, there's vents in here. What it is if your LiPo battery shorts out, the LiPo batteries can get very hot, they can cause fires, things like that. This will contain that. So if you have this in your garage, or God forbid in your house, you'll get a lot of smoke, but you're not going to catch anything on fire. Right. These are an insurance with LiPo batteries. The other thing you can use, we call these LiPo bags. Some of them are flat where you can put 1 or 2 in it. This is a little bit larger bag where you can put a few more in it. In any case, you want to have something that's fireproof to store your batteries in. A lot of folks will use ammo cans if they've got access to those. Those are a great thing. You find those hardware stores.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything's better than nothing. Just because you don't think you might be the guy that is going to have the battery that'll never catch on fire. And it is a rare case, but if you mistreat, especially a LiPo battery like we talked about earlier, these tend to, if you mistreat them, you can definitely have a fire. So definitely be safe.
Going on that a little bit, what you'll see with a LiPo battery, when they start going bad, they will start to swell, right? And in the case of hard cases, you'll see it crack along the center. When you see that with your LiPo batteries, you need to find a battery store or a hardware store. Lowe's sometimes has it, that you can dispose of rechargeable batteries. Don't throw these in the trash can. You'll set your local landfill on fire.
Oh, that'll be a good one. That's a stinky one at that.
Right, and you could also end up in some legal trouble. So with LiPo batteries, dispose of them properly when they start swelling. So the next thing I want to talk about is charging your batteries.
How do we charge them, and how do we know which ones to charge at what rate and amps?
Yep. So let's see here. Let's start with let's do this nickel metal battery here. So the charger I've got here, this is my Passport Ultra 2. Now, if you notice, I've got 2 ports in here. I've got an A side and a B side. On my cable here, I've got red and black. So it's kind of self-explanatory. Red to red, black to black. All right. So a nickel metal battery, literally all you're going to do is you're going to plug in, again, your connector. And in this case, usually they can only go one way. I've got a flat side over here and a round side over here. Plug those in, but what you're looking for is red to red, black to black. On your charger, I'm not going to get into how all the charging works, but this is a nickel metal battery. I'm going to choose nickel metal. I'm going to choose my current rate. And in this case, this is a 1200 milliamp battery. So I want to set my charging rate to 1.2. All right, if it's a 1000 milliamp, 1 amp. If it's a 2000 milliamp, 2 amps. If it's a 4000 milliamp, 4 amps. 5000, 5 amps. Now, I know some of you are going, whoa, Spectrum, hold on a second. Yes, the Spectrum Smart G2 batteries, some of those batteries can charge up to 25 amps. I'm aware of that, but for the safety sake of what we're talking about, the rule of thumb is 1000, 1 amp, 2000, 2 amps, so forth and so on. Always do what the manufacturer recommends. All right, so back to what we're doing here. Nickel metal, we're on 1.2 amps. I'm just simply going to start that battery and let it run. This charger gives me a lot of data, the amperage it's charging at, how much voltage is in it, so forth and so on. Your good smart chargers will stop charging when they're done. Okay, we'll stop that one. Let's talk about how to charge a LiPo. All right, LiPo battery. So when you charge a LiPo, you have to do 2 things. Plug in your main lead, plug in your charging lead. All right, this is a 6S battery. So what I'm going to do, I've got both of my leads plugged in on my charger. I'm still on side A. Now what I need to do is I need to make sure I put this on LiPo battery. Now I've got options here as far as charge, fast charge, storage, discharge, balance, but we're going to just talk about charging. So again, this is a 3200 milliamp battery, so I want to take that down to 3.2 amps. If I don't have tenths of an amp, just go to 3 amps. Always go below it. And again, we're on 6S. This charger will do 1 through 6. So I want to set it to 6. Start my charger. And it says balance lead wires not connected. That's because I plugged them into the wrong side. It's a good example of not done right. Most chargers are safe, in which case if you make a mistake, they won't let you charge. Okay, so start our battery. And now we're charging. So once again, like I mentioned before, 22.2 volt battery. It's actually at 24.6 volts right now. This battery is pretty well fully charged. Also with LiPo, sometimes your charger will tell you different data points, such as, let's see here. It'll tell you each individual cell, what it's at, how balanced it is, so forth and so on. In this case, I actually do have one cell that's a little bit low. It's actually at 95%. This charger, most chargers will charge your battery all the way up and then they will actually balance them. If they don't, it's a good idea to balance charge your batteries from time to time. That's just a way of taking care of your batteries. The last thing I want to talk about with charging is storage charge, right? So people ask me all the time, should I storage charge my batteries? Should I, how should I store my batteries? So ideally, yeah, it's a good idea to put your batteries in storage mode.
Especially your LiPos, for sure.
LiPos, yes. Nickel metals, you can pretty much leave them fully charged, no harm, no foul. But when you're charging LiPos, storage mode is a good idea. If your charger has the ability to do that, that's a good thing if you're not going to run them for a while. Of note, though, the Spectrum smart batteries will put themselves in storage mode after 6 days, which is set from the factory. You can use some of Spectrum's devices to change that date to whatever you want it to be, to make it several months or a few hours or whatever, but it is a good idea to put your batteries into storage mode.
Best rule of thumb on that too is something like our ProTech Shorty Pack LiPo we have here too, that is running off our bullet stock connector, so a little bit different. But this battery is not going to be capable of that self-discharge like the Spectrums are. So if you had a long day and maybe you just charged it up for your last race and, oh man, I broke apart in the first corner, and you're done with this battery for the day, the safest way and the best way to make this battery live the longest life possible before we get to swelling or damaging it is to take it back home, plug it back to your charger, put it on storage mode, and it'll put this battery back to 50%, and that'll be the best thing you can do for these.
Okay, so I think we kind of covered everything on batteries at this point. Bottom line is just make sure your batteries are charged before you go to the racetrack. That includes your radio.
And radio too.
And if you ever have questions about your batteries or something you don't understand, always, ask your local hobby shop or get on a forum. Somebody's going to give you the information.
Somebody's going to be there to help you. For sure.
RC is definitely a community where people help each other out. So ask questions.
Yeah, and don't, some people, get into the hobby. I know I was, several years ago. If you want to get into racing and, you see this bullet and you're like, I don't even know what we're looking at here. Feel free to go out to a race. The people there are just as friendly as, you coming into here, and everybody's there to help you, and it's a great community all around.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.